So this is the second of 3 videos for this week, and this one's going to be on what we call HIPCO. And if you're smart, and you're not, but if you're smart, what you will do is make sure you know what HIPCO stands for. What happens is this is a acronym that is used for the 6 major causes of extinction to plants and animals on the planet. What is causing things to disappear? So HIPCO. So really want you to know this. Obviously, it'll be on tests, probably be on a not practical quiz. So definitely understand what this means. And the hippo picture is to help remember, although there is a C missing. So what do those stand for? Habitat destruction, invasive species, population growth, pollution, climate change, and overexploitation. So we'll talk about all 6 of these real quickly here. Some of them we already have, so I'm just going to touch on them again. But we spent a week on climate change, so I'm not sure that's necessary per se to rehash that. So let's go through these real quickly and take a look at what they are and what they mean. Habitat destruction, we really haven't talked about in any great length, I guess. So species go extinct because there is no habitat left, and that is probably one of the biggest causes of the extinction on the planet today. We are just destroying habitat at an alarming rate, and by doing that, unfortunately, we're chopping things up. And this is where stuff from last week comes into play: the island biogeography. We need to. We got to make sure that these habitats stay large, that they stay connected through corridors that I mentioned earlier, and that we have ways for species to migrate from one area to another. And that's important for genetics, it's important for the species, it's important for the ecosystems. There's a word on here I think you should know, and it's called endemic, so be sure you know the word endemic. You can see it up there. That means only found in a single area, which means that these organisms are obviously under peril, because if that single habitat disappears, so do they. So, and you can see some of the animals here. We got tigers, rhinos. You notice they're all very large, long lifespans. Take several years for them to breed. So these are K-selected species, very easily can go extinct. All right, the number 2 on HIPCO was invasive species. Intentional or accidental introduction of species, and we are doing this constantly. So we're gonna talk about a few here, because we again have kind of mentioned them, I think, but not really kind of keyed into it. 98% of all our food is intentionally introduced non-native species, and sometimes that's helpful because there's no native predators to those. But it also can cause problems when things are introduced and then get out because there aren't any predators for them. They can wreak havoc on our ecosystems. So let's give you a few. Hawaii is the extinction capital of America, North America. According to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife, at present, about 42% of U.S. species are listed as endangered. And due to invasive species. Hawaii, 95% of them are. And in California, we're number 2. And we have almost 300 endangered species. So Hawaii, being an island, definitely has issues. And I laugh because many of the things that are associated with Hawaii, like pineapples and macadamia nuts and coffee, are all introduced species. They are definitely not native to Hawaii. All right, some of the things that have been introduced that you might have heard of: Argentine fire ants were accidentally brought into Alabama, and these suckers are taking out 90% of the native ants. Can kill humans. Over 80 people have died from these things. They are aggressive. They attack. You can see the playground over here on the left. This is these ants. It's a float on top of the water. They're just one big pile, one big, what they call them, a raft, and they are going to colonnade another area. All right, another one are snakes in Florida, Burmese pythons. Also, there's some other species, but they're brought in as pets. And these snakes get very, very large. So as a pet, they're cute and you handle them. And as they get bigger and bigger, they get harder to take care of. Nobody takes them. There's no place to put them. So people will release them, or they will escape. And they have become a problem in Florida. Matter of fact, there's a bounty on their head. You can burn them dead, and they will pay you. The problem is they extinct there. They didn't survive the winters. These guys will hunker down in the mud and kind of hibernate over the winter time, and they do quite well, unfortunately. So not good. The kudzu vine. This one is from Japan. It was brought here actually kind of as a gift for somebody, but they noticed it was great for soil erosion, in which it is. But then it took over the world. It actually causes ozone smog. It's southeast U.S. is known for this stuff, where it's just taken over. Also, Hawaii has some of this. And unfortunately, in Hawaii, with all the rain, the whole hillsides will come off. So what it's trying to prevent will for a while, but it gets so heavy, it'll be bad. One here in California, don't worry about all. I've got lots of words on here, but the zebra mussel has been a problem for people who like boating. It's a tiny. What you have here is a freshwater clam, which is about this size, and so the mussels are really, really tiny. And they got into the Great Lakes, and now they're actually even here in California a bit. And so what's happened is they're costing millions of dollars in power plants, but they'll get into boats. And so you pull your boat out and you take it to a different lake and dump it back in. It's spreading. So they now will have zebra mussel checks before you drop your boat in the water. To make sure that your boat does not have any, and they actually have trained dogs to actually be able to smell zebra mussels. And so if they have a hit on your boat, they can actually tear your boat apart looking for them. They can get trapped in engines and things. So definitely an issue. So lots of different species that just run amok. So controlling invasive species, what can we do? We spend tons of money trying to $2.7 million. Once they're established, they're almost impossible to remove. We know that in the wildlife sanctuary right now. We have bullfrogs, which, for our purposes, it's kind of nice to see wildlife. But a lot of that stuff is invasive. So what we have is we have bullfrogs, we have crayfish. The crayfish that we have is not a local species. We have the red-eared sliders, the turtles, again, not a native species. We've actually introduced one, which is Zambia, which is mosquito fish. That's what the county uses to control mosquito larvae. So definitely a huge problem in the way we have moved species around the planet. Invasive seaweeds, for lack of a better term, blocking out light and some organisms to flourish. So, all right. In HIPCO, going back to HIPCO, another one is population growth, which we again spent a week on. So I don't want to necessarily talk about those issues. We will talk about the human footprint later on. So on the planet. But we already kind of went over that concept. Pollution, we also talked about being bad. And then last week we talked about DDT and Rachel Carson. And I wanted you to watch that video and read that article on the dumping of those cans right off of Catalina Island. So definitely issues. Climate change, again, we spent another week on that. So here we have a polar bear eating a bearded seal. and these guys are definitely in trouble because of the changes being made to their habitat. It could be gone as early as the end of the century. Over exploitation, this is a very sad picture. Over hunting, overfishing, over harvesting. It's just using things way too much, not within a sustainability framework. So illegal killing, capturing, selling of species threaten biodiversity. There's all kinds of different species. So here you see a rhino being killed for its horn. The horn is thought to be an aphrodisiac. Um, it is made of keratin, which is what your hair is made of and your fingernails. It is not an aphrodisiac. So killing this magnificent species for that is beyond ridiculous. All right, so let's talk about some principles. I didn't put them in the first one. So Vogel principle, page 80, number 10. Natural resources are the basis of economic and monetary systems, and systems that expand beyond this resource base must ultimately collapse. If we continue to overexploit and overuse, our economic system will die. It has to. You will run out of resource. It is one of the dumbest arguments I hear all the time. We've got endangered species versus economics. That is not an either or principle. You've got to do both. Obviously, we need to have a society that moves forward and has ways of getting our basic needs, but by not taking care of our resources, that will collapse. All right. Unfortunately, rising demand for bushmeat. Certain areas where people can't find food, they're going into the forest and killing species. It's called bushmeat. And we know that eating bushmeat has probably spread fatal diseases. HIV, we believe, has come from a very similar virus in simians and primates, monkeys, called SIV. And it was believed a delicacy is monkey brain. And we believe that it has jumped. And so, again, we really need to try to stop these exotic foods, which happens here. You'll see that in the movie we want you to read, to watch this week. And a disturbing message from birds. 70% of the world bird species are in decline. Their biometers telling us there's a problem. They're indicator species, and they're being brought in for pet trade. So I have a couple of birds. Moose is the loudest one. I will tell you that moose was actually hatched from an egg here in the United States. I've got paperwork on that. All my birds that I've had over the years, I have not bought any. I bought one from my sister-in-law when she was going through some issues and needed money. Although she would have probably just given it to me anyway. But anyway, so all my birds have been from owners that could not handle them or keep them anymore. And so I would not take one from the wild. This is a hyacinth macaw, one of the bigger macaws. But actually, of all the macaws, this guy is probably the most tameable. Very impressive, very, very good looking birds. But again, taking them out of the wild is a disservice. And so we will stop the share. Stop the recording.